And the logic behind rejecting Gandhi as a philosopher is that, unlike Plato or Marx, Gandhi hardly propounded theories and concepts of politics and philosophy. But then, on the contrary, if you see, another very, important philosopher of our time, Akil Bilgrami, Rajiv Bhargav has also come out with a book this year. There, he's actually coming up something very, very important. He observes that Gandhi's ideas are deeply rooted in abstract epistemologies that makes him a philosopher. And he further goes to say that about specific political strategies in specific context flowed from ideas that were very remote from politics. Instead, they flowed from and were integrated to most abstract epistemological and methodological commitments. That's Gandhi for you. You know, the literature that I have gone, very limited literature, I didn't find any, someone actually capturing Gandhi's ideas and actions together, and that makes Gandhi a kind of, philosopher. There is no kind of, desperate attempt from my side, or there should not be any desperate attempt from anybody's side, or Gandhi doesn't need to actually prove him anything to anyone, to the extent the kind of, to put him either, once he's recognized a philosopher, his ideas will be more profound than what it is today. But then, just to put it in a kind of an academic perspective, Arni Naes would say that, Gandhi needs help. Okay, this is where I do not know to agree with the author here or to disagree with her. But then, goes on to say that Gandhi needs help to enter the history of philosophy, and his philosophy has to be extracted from his actions and speeches. Now, this is where, what Arun Patnaik would write in our book in 2018, what he would say that, somebody like Ambedkar or a Gandhi or a Lohia are surplus philosophers. Surplus philosophers, he would mean that, okay, the philosophy is very much there in the kind of an action. But then, to come to the context, when such a comparison, or making, a Gandhi or a Marx or a Plato to offer a kind of, comparison, doesn't offer much. But it is important to also bring these kind of, philosophers to a common platform to understand, how this kind of, limited knowledge, or a kind of, kind of, putting binaries against one philosopher and the other. It is important to actually investigate these such claims that Gandhi is not a philosopher like Plato or a that of, Marx. One has to understand Plato is important today, as students of political science or philosophy, not because we want to construct a small polity he envisioned in his republic, but because we want to know what he had to say about things like, other issues or the concepts like justice. By the same token, if you see, Rousseau's simple society is not what attracts the modern readers to the social contract, but rather a concern about legitimacy and the civic virtue. When we are actually trying to understand some kind of, contemporary relevance of a kind of, old philosophy, or the philosophy that was actually told in the past, we try to see, what it offers in kind of, in the present context. So, okay, in the similar vein, Gandhi needs to be read with the intention of finding what he wanted to accomplish, rather than concentrating on some of his suggested institutional kind of, solutions. Accordingly, as I mentioned earlier, it is not through manufacturing divisions on various aspects of Gandhi's ideas and considering of ideas, but by considering Gandhi as a surplus philosopher and a philosopher politician, let me reflect on the relevance of Gandhi's ideas in our times. When I'm talking about in our times, my discipline as trained in political science, something very important that comes to our mind. For last 7, 8 months, what we are seeing, the Russian attack on Ukraine. That is a new form of imperialism, a new form of kind of militant colonialism that we are actually witnessing. More than that, it is just a contemporary kind of an example that I'm citing. But then we as Indians or the Africans and some of the Latin American countries, we have been subjected to what I can say the cultural kind of imperialism and colonialism ever since the kind of the decolonization process has started. The question that we have been asking ourselves, that whether we as countries have been completely decolonized or we have been completely out of these colonial clutches. But then Gandhi's ideas on kind of colonialism and his struggle for freedom and independence arguably puts Gandhi as one of the greatest imperialistic thinkers. you know uh, when I'm saying imperialistic thinkers, one has to understand that Gandhi's freedom struggle should not be confined, and or one should not actually understand Gandhi's freedom struggle confining his ideas to only India. His struggle against imperialism is a result of his anxiety regarding the threats of modern Western civilization and an offshoot of colonialism. This is where we have kind of scholars, or there is a body of literature that tries to pose Gandhi, since he was opposed to the Western civilization or the Western way of kind of living. Many would actually put it that Gandhi was against modernity. Okay, this is where Raghuram Raju's text actually comes to our mind, or and many such, even Akili Vilgrami and Arjuna Padurai would also call it, that one should not be, the Gandhi's rejection of Western values should not be construed him as an anti-modern thing. You know, I also got a chance to reading Gandhi. I also got a chance to read K.C. Bhattacharya's idea in Swaraj. And that is where, something that there is a commonality between what Gandhi's rejection of Western values and what K.C. Bhattacharya is actually trying to actually offer. That any values or any kind of civilizational values, if it is accepted without competition, comparison, and examination, that is colonialism. That is where there is a control over kind of the mind, and that is something Gandhi was very much opposed to. That is where even after his death, what you see, the role of Gandhi's idea, or the intensity of his idea, bringing some kind of drastic social changes through non-violent means in the countries like in America and then South Africa. Ambassador Pascal Nazareth has a detailed book, okay, in some of the Latin American countries where Gandhi's ideas were actually used by the feminist movements and other things, is a classic example. And that actually, Gandhi doesn't need anything to be proved, but from my point of view, I would say that one of the greatest imperialistic kind of thinkers of our time. So now, if I want to put it in the present context, so these values, or the kind of assertive kind of posturing of some of the foreign countries, or some of the world powers on the other thing, there is a need. The country that is at the receiving end doesn't need to actually, or can actually rethink. Some countries like Ukraine need to rethink, okay, is there a need for such aggressive posturing against Russia? Is there a room for kind of dialogue? Is there a room for kind of the Gandhian idea to be actually used here, so that a lot of kind of loss of lives and properties can be actually avoided? From the imperial, as an imperialist, great imperialist thinker, I would come to something that is actually having a kind of deeper impact on our society, and Gandhi as an important kind of social reformer. Starting from his career, against apartheid, then he coming to India, where he was working against caste discrimination, untouchability, and what Madhukishore would say, that Gandhi was one of the foremost kind of thinkers in Indian context for the women empowerment. And when you see Gandhi as a kind of social reformer, that is where very important observation. What I found is Gandhi would try to bring such kind of reformation or working within the system without adhering to any militant approach. We have people working on kind of against casteism, caste discrimination, and untouchability, and adhering to kind of some kind of militant approach. We have examples from Tamil Nadu where a militant reformism, what I call, okay, that the complete elimination of a particular caste, complete elimination, or chasing them out from a territoriality, such are shown as kind of also bringing social reformations. But Gandhi, on the other hand, was very much inclusive in his approach in actually bringing social changes, working within the kind of society. So there, one important aspect of women empowerment, now that we are seeing there is an assertion, exclusive kind of assertion for gender identity. One has to actually bring in Gandhi, to understand or to work towards women empowerment, without actually putting this assertive kind of posturing. You know, so Gandhi's empowerment can be articulated in three different but interrelated kind of spheres. You know, the social, the political, and the personal. Okay, so this is where, and I'll also bring another important aspect. When the feminism or the women empowerment is around this whole concept of equality, Gandhi would bring in the aspect of independent here, or independence of women. Okay, so this is very profound, that it is the independence of women would actually allow them to actually stand for themselves. So that is where Gandhi also brings out one another important thing, that the women are more sacrificial than the men. Okay. Well, the masculine kind of thing has dominated the society for a longer time. Gandhi would actually bring that it is the women leadership, okay, through their sacrificial nature, will bring a lot of kind of social changes without militarism and all that. That is how, if you see the Champaran movement to civil disobedience movement, all these kind of movements, some might actually call it as kind of symbolism, but then Gandhi would actually mobilize a greater participation of women, coming here, coming and participating in the freedom struggle. So then another important kind of social issues around which Gandhi actually worked and brought a lot of changes was untouchability. You know, so untouchability, Gandhi would see how beautifully, as I told you, that he was not against the system or without this outside the system. He was working within the system. That is where untouchability for Gandhi was a sin. Fight against untouchability is necessarily a prescriptive value based hierarchical rigidity.
Anshuman, Abhishek.
Yes, sir. I think there is some network lag from his end.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I was talking about untouchability. So Gandhi would see that in a fight against untouchability is necessarily a fight against impure humanity. The two important things actually comes. Okay. So this is where Gandhi makes a distinction of the Varnashrama dharma, okay, which was necessarily a prescriptive value-based hierarchical rigidity. Okay. But then the caste as an existential kind of reality. He calling people, the people from the lower strata as Harijan. That is where he was actually not putting the people who are exploiting or who are on the upper strata, okay, any kind of competitive or hostile kind of thing. And another important aspect of Gandhi, if you see that, he was the fight against untouchability. How beautifully he linked them to the freedom kind of struggle. Okay, this is something that now that we are seeing that the untouchability now, of course, in the post-independence kind of period, you see all these kind of caste has become a kind of political capital. Nevertheless, uh, nevertheless, the untouchable practices or the untouchability as a practice is very much there. I would see that okay, what Ambedkar would actually mentioned about the primacy of the social, the democracy should actually come to the social first, then the political later. There is absolutely no difference between what Gandhi would actually try to fight against the impure humanity that is actually bringing changes at the social level. Calling the lower strata of the people as Harijan is an attempt to work at the social level first, then coming to the political level, right? Then the last aspect where we need to actually bring in Gandhi to understand as a kind of or to make sense of his ideas in our contemporary time as Gandhi as a politician and as a political thinker. Okay, when I was editing another book in 2018, Reasoning Indian Politics from Philosopher Politicians to politicians seeking philosophy, that is where we observed that the Indian politics has gone through or has been going through a subtle but very, very important kind of change. What we observed, or what we can observe here, that the politicians are not necessarily having their own philosophical kind of ideas, or they do not set their kind of political ideas. They borrow ideas from the established philosophers, unlike Gandhi, Ambedkar, or Lohia. But then, if you see, the Gandhi's case, Gandhi as a politician functioned through his political ideas. He first kind of decided on his political ideas, and his actions, his political actions, always kind of followed his ideas. One of such idea, Gandhi's ideas, was the whole aspect of Swaraj. And the Swaraj, now that we are actually in the contemporary period, that there is a debate that is going on in India, there is a lot of populism that is going on in the name of freebies, or the politicians or the political parties in power are trying to kind of substitute or trying to show that populism is necessarily welfareism. If you read Gandhi's Swaraj, Gandhi would say that greater welfare of the people is necessarily Swaraj. And that is where he would also go to the extent of saying that if the agency of the agency that governs doesn't matter if the greater welfare of the people is actually guaranteed. Many would actually critique Gandhi, saying that is Gandhi comfortable with the British rule? That was an extreme example that Gandhi was actually saying. But then that confusion doesn't need to be actually given any kind of scope to enlarge its or to spread its tentacles. One has to understand the whole idea of Swaraj. Gandhi, one important thing was that he meant Swaraj as Ramaraj. The Ramaraj here is about the moral authority and the political power are basic foundations of the sovereignty of people. People who would misunderstand that the agency of the government, okay, or the agency of the governance doesn't matter, this is a kind of reply. But then coming to the contemporary kind of period, when there is a competition or the competitive kind of populism is going on, the Gandhi's idea of welfareism becomes very, very important. And then the welfareism for Gandhi was something like enhancing the capabilities of the people or the individuals, not necessarily securing the vote for the next term. Okay, that is where the citizens should not be actually converted into a potential kind of voter. Okay, I'm just trying to share these ideas. And the last, okay, one, there are many things that we have covered in the book, but then to my little understanding, the aspect of Gandhi's economic ideas and its relevance in the contemporary period. The COVID thing actually, came as a kind of, it's actually forced us to kind of, introspect on the demand or the kind of, desire for the large scale industries that people are actually, or the politicians and the development agents are actually trying to push. Now, Gandhi on those days would actually push for smaller and medium scale industries to cater to the local needs. And that is the whole concept of Swadesh. It should not be limited only to Swadeshi and Videshi, what the foreign things and the localized thing. But then the Swadeshi within the Indian context can also be constructed in such a way that it caters to the needs of the neighborhood and the immediate kind of neighborhood. And it's a time when there is an accumulation of wealth, there is a competition of accumulation of wealth is going, and we have these rankings actually coming that Adani becomes the second richest and Ambani is and the following kind of thing, and some people derive some kind of pride out of it. We also, Gandhi's idea of trusteeship needs to be actually revisited. There is an import, there is an immediacy to actually go back to the idea, because if you see around 13-14% of our tribal population in India, are actually having absolutely no land or very little land to their kind of to their record. That is where the things like trusteeship, the ideas like trusteeship, bhudan, and gramadan are something that actually can actually offer certain kind of solution, or certain kind of policy recommendation to the kind of challenges that we are facing. Very quickly, a couple of minutes on our book. When we actually started this book, initially it was just 5 to 6 chapters we had. Now we have actually 13 chapters. The book is divided on four major issues, four major themes. The first theme is on the democracy, development, and governance. In this, we have something very important chapters like, when there are competition going between the communists and the liberals, that on the primacy of the individual versus the primacy of the collective. We have a chapter by Professor Arun Patnaik coming on and celebrating Gandhi's ideas of participatory democracy and oceanic circle. Then also in the public policy kind of thing, we have a chapter on Gandhi's ideas on public policy and all that. The second theme of the book is very, very important, where we are actually discussing in few chapters about the ethics of Gandhi's politics on different aspects, starting from environmental ethics, where Professor Panda has also contributed something on making of a man. Then we come to another aspect of Gandhi's ideas on education, where we have a paper on unalienated kind of an education in Indian context, now that we are actually discussing NEP and all that. This unalienated kind of an education of Gandhi, the whole concept of Gandhi can be revisited, okay, and it can be a part of our education system. The last part of the last theme of our book is on the peace and the conflict resolution, and this is where we actually go to try to understand Gandhi's ideas of non-violent and peaceful kind of conflict resolution in India, given India is actually witnessing multiple violent conflicts. That is what Galtung would write, that peace for peaceful means, or peace by peaceful means. So this is something that I have very limited understanding of Gandhi. I stop here. I would actually request your kind of a comments and suggestions, so that I actually understand and learn a bit more on Gandhi from such a learned kind of audience. Many thanks to Professor Panda for giving me this opportunity to come and speak among the philosophers. This is I'm a bit nervous, but for any mistake or many wrong saying, you will forgive me. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Behera, for this wonderful talk. Um, so he has covered many aspects of Gandhi, that how Gandhi's ideas are relevant and how it can be compared with other philosophers, whether Gandhi was a philosopher or not. So now I request Professor Pradhan to uh, give his reflection on the talk. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Panda, for inviting me to give my ideas on this auspicious occasion, that the Gandhi Jayanti. Professor Behera has drawn our attention to multiple aspects of Gandhi's thoughts. He has very, with sufficient argument, he has shown that Gandhi could be no less a philosopher. In fact, he puts him as a world philosopher, and I agree with him. And he has also shown how he can be always found relevant so far as violence exists in society in some form or other. So his defense of ahimsa, the principle of ahimsa remains a permanent principle which mankind can never forget. The other aspect which he has highlighted is Gandhi, the social reformer, the liberator of millions of downtrodden human beings in all uh, the societies where they were under the suppression of colonial rule. So he is a liberator in that sense, and that also that image of Gandhi as a liberator is also very important. And last but not the least, he has also highlighted his economic thought, how his defense of small is beautiful. The small economy is the most viable economy that I think mankind has to realize, because large economies are likely to fall. Because whenever you have a very big economy, and even if a small war, which is a regional war, not small, it is a regional war, like the Russian Ukraine conflict, can also bring the economy down, as it is happening in America. So Gandhi's ideas uh, have to be taken contextually and have to be taken globally. That is what I gather from Dr. Behera's discourse. Let us see how Gandhi has really been perceived uh, by the philosophers across the world. By the way, I do not understand the concept of surplus philosopher, but that may be somebody's own idea. Either he is a philosopher or not a surplus philosopher. And in that case, Marx also should be a surplus philosophy. No, that is, philosophy has no restriction like that. Philosophy is a global thinking. Philosophy thinks from a very universal perspective, which takes into account all aspects of human existence. So, in that sense, Gandhi has written and spoken on all aspects of the human situation, right from his emphasis on Satya and Ahimsa, which are his core metaphysical principles, and to his idea of Satyagraha, which is his moral principle, the moral means for social change, we can say it. It is also called the moral equivalent of the war. Satyagraha is called the moral equivalent of the war. These are not small ideas, they are not surplus ideas. In fact, they are the core ideas of Gandhi. If Gandhi remains ever in the mind of human beings, not only Indians, I do not take Indian context as the only context. In fact, I will say it is a very poor context, because Indian politicians have not only betrayed Gandhi, Indian society as such is not, it's completely on Gandhian. In the sense, whatever Gandhi told about the future of mankind, his idea of society, they are all very much lacking in our society. So I do not consider Gandhi to be confined to India only. It should be looked at from a global perspective, how the Americans look at him, how the South Africans look at him. Martin Luther King Jr. would not have been inspired by Gandhi had Gandhi not been a very, very significant thinker. Similarly, Mandela in South Africa would not have been influenced by Gandhi if Gandhi didn't have given the idea of satyagraha. So, in a sense, Mandela was a satyagrahi. He fought for 30 years or so in the prison for the against apartheid, and he ultimately succeeded. So, in a sense, that is victory of Gandhian idea also. So, in a sense, I think we will be Indians will be doing a service to Gandhi if we can really look at him from a global perspective and look at his ideas not with reference to some uh, petty Indian context, petty Indian political context, whether Gandhi was a pro Muslim or pro Hindu, all those cliches are very much available in our discourse, and they are of no use for understanding Gandhi. Similarly, while Gandhi chose Nehru as his successor, this is also controversial. In fact, Gandhi should not have done it. That's my personal desire. He should have allowed merit to prevail. These are the small contexts. I think Gandhi cannot be judged by small incidents. These are historical incidents. Maybe the constraint of time and history was there, as uh, Professor Anshuman has also pointed out. He was in a time when fascist dictators were ruling the world. So Gandhi, when you pose him against Lenin, he will stand nowhere, because Lenin was a very a violent, a man who believed in violent social change. But now we can see what sort of society Russia is having. That means Lenin has failed in that sense, at least from Gandhian perspective. But in spite of all these drawbacks, Indian society has not ultimately collapsed, because some of the ideas which Gandhi has inherited, they come from the Indian ethos. The concept of Satya and Ahimsa, they come from our spiritual heritage, from our moral heritage. So in that sense, just as we say Indian economy is strong in the fundamentals, we can also say the Indian society is also strong at the fundamentals. But these fundamentals are not what our politicians talk about. These fundamentals are the moral and spiritual fundamentals. That is why India is resiliently surviving amidst all chaotic conditions in the world. So, in spite of all that has happened to India in the history of thousands of years, India still is vibrant entity, whether as a cultural entity or as a political entity. So, in that sense, Gandhi was representing India in its essence, India in its soul. So, I think Gandhi's philosophy comes from the basics of Indian philosophy. So, in that sense, I agree with Professor Behera that we must look at Gandhi more positively, with a different kind of perspective, not colored by our local prejudices or political prejudices. We must, I personally believe, we must put him on a high pedestal. Unless we put a thinker on a high pedestal, we are going to minimize him, we are going to minimize his importance, we are likely to bring him back into the controversial areas where we miss Gandhi. In present political discourse in Gandhi, Gandhi is missing. Not because India is missing, but people have forgotten what Gandhi really stood for. So, in that sense, I think we are in a means we have listened to somebody who has worked on Gandhi, though he's very humbly says that he doesn't know ABC of philosophy, but ABCs of philosophy, everybody has to master those ABC. And we in philosophy also believe that we might not have crossed ABC also, because philosophy is very vast. Philosophy is like an ocean, and if somebody can claim that he's a philosopher, some do claim, but that only means that he has done something very little which the world may not recognize. But the point is, Gandhi is recognized by the world. That is the greatness of Gandhi. If there was nothing in Gandhi, then Einstein would not have said that future generation cannot believe that such a man in flesh and blood ever walked on the earth. Einstein was no small scientist, the greatest scientist of the time, and also he was a philosopher. Remember, he was a scientist and also philosopher. So, in that sense, if one scientist philosopher can say the future generation cannot believe that such a man ever was born on earth, I think Gandhi qualifies to be also the philosopher, the global thinker, the world philosopher. With these words, I really thank Dr. Behera for his erudite lecture. And also, I thank Dr. Panda for arranging this discussion on the platform of the forum. Forum is basically open to all ideas, so that fits into its scheme. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sir, you are on mute.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Thank you, sir, for your valuable reflection. Now we open this for common discussion. So um, we can ask. Yes, Professor Ghosh, please ask.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you, Dr. Panda. We must we must thank Dr. Behera for bringing out total total thinking process of Mahatma Gandhi, and also one important thing which I want to mention, who has mentioned about this, and I have to check, and as Professor Pradhan also says, that Gandhi, Lohiya, Ambedkar, they were not surplus philosophers. Their spirit was fully philosophical. They ingrained totally in the Indian culture, Indian ethos, and the Indian. You see, the other day I was going through Gita Rahasya of Tilak, and you will be surprised to know that in Gita Rahasya, Tilak himself has incorporated Green, Thomas Hill Green's Prolegomena to Ethics, and also Kant's Critique of Purism, and he says they are the sources from where I could get this idea of Gita Rahasya. So all these thinkers, they were not, we cannot say that they are just surplus philosophers and their views are not to be given much importance. And if they are surplus philosophers, I don't know who will be taken as the real philosophers. So far as social philosophy is concerned, these thinkers are to be seriously taken as philosophers. Okay, now you see the Gandhi's views are so broad spectrum. You can, if you are telling that is not like Plato or Marx, you take the case of Marx. When you are discussing Marx, you are discussing his economy, you are discussing his politics, you are discussing his social views separately. But all these things are there in Gandhi. May not be, he was not a systematic philosopher. He never systematized. Only one book can give the entire idea of Gandhian philosophy, that is his Hind Swaraj. So you can find there, that small book gives us the total picture of what Gandhi wants to say. And all these things. And now, most importantly, Gandhi should be dearer to all, because Gandhi's spirit, and that's why it is said that let us all try to discover a Gandhi in us, because we are always missing at one point, and that point is what we say normally we do not put it into practice. But Gandhi did just the opposite. He first of all practiced certain things and then he tried to put it or theorize on it. So that is most important. And you take the case of non-violence, take the case of the the truth, and all these concepts he has himself practiced first, and then he tried to put in a systematic way. My experiments with truth, and all these are these are the examples where he says that I have done these things myself, and he never prophesied. Rather, he's in that way he comes closer to Buddha, because Buddha also said certain things, but he never tried. He never said that his disciple will automatically become a Buddha, because that is the, he just gave certain things. Maybe they are sermons, they may be taken as sermons, no doubt, but those sermons are different from the political sermons, or given to the public. They are not for the public, but they are for the people with a heart of feelings for others. Thank you. This much I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ghosh. Any Any other question? Or
Good
yes,
evening, all.
yes.
Yeah.
I
So,
welcome to
so,
the forum. Yes, please share your views.
well, the questions will not be from academic perspective, since I'm not an academic in philosophy. I have a very basic question. So, what I understand, when you talk about philosophy, probably yes, this human experience we are trying to decode through all sort of dualism. I mean, we experience the life through the dualism, and that is probably fundamentally considered as philosophy. Uh, so there has to be contradiction, and the more profound is the contradiction, I believe that is the deeper sense of philosophy. But so far as Gandhi is concerned, I beg to disagree. I don't actually understand from what angle I should consider him as a philosopher, because his contradictions are at very basic level. Be at your nonviolence, the proposition of nonviolence, the way he dealt with it, or maybe the series of struggle that he has contributed during the freedom struggle. Everywhere I find some gap out there. So that level of sincerity to deep down to a deeper level of understanding of life experience, somewhere I missed. So if somebody could help me answering this, thank you so much. This is a purely non-academic question.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, it will come to some. You will get a good response, I'm sure. Yes, Satyendra ji, you want to say something?
It's not a question. I want to share some experience about Gandhi reading.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Thank you so much for such a wonderful deliberation. Two or three things I wish to share with you. Am I audible, please? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
When we evaluate Gandhi in 21st century as a philosopher, I think Gandhi is not an academician in a very, you can say, traditional sense. Rather, he is a comprehensive thinker who contributed role in all domains of all domains of humanities. It may be political science, sociology, economics, environment, or anything. Just imagine if we have followed the path of Gandhian lifestyle, the way we have suffered during COVID 19, it must not happen. Especially as Ranjit sir mentioned, that is his emphasis on the teachings of Swaraj or the lifestyle that he followed in Swaraj. Okay. All the technical and medical development failed to handle the crisis caused by COVID 19. So this is something Gandhi is very special. He does not talk about something like that political freedom or spiritual development or something like that women empowerment. All things are there, but still he is above to them. Other thing that how we can contribute, how we can assess his role in the world or in the other domain of the. I just completed the autobiography of Nelson Mandela. And honestly speaking, when I completed that autobiography, I was crying. It was so powerful, it was so intense that only a true follower of Gandhian scholar, Gandhian ideology can behave like Nelson Mandela. Can you just imagine a person went in the jail, spent his time, one third of his life in the jail, and still he did not utter a single word in the form of personal enmity towards British. A long walk to freedom. It is such a powerful reading that if you really wish to understand Gandhi in 21st century, or you can say contemporary world, these like Hind Swaraj and the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, these two are indispensable. That is my observation because I am teaching Hind Swaraj in my classroom and just mentioned this example that situation has been completely different if we follow the path of Hind Swaraj. Thank you so much, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Satyendra ji. Any other question or observation? Lokesh, you are want to say something?
Yes, sir. I have one thing. I wanted to ask about how is Gandhi's ideology more much relevant to the contemporary youth? So, how will people? I want to know how will the future youth see Gandhi, and what were the other philosophies maybe during his time, which was maybe like something which we should all know about, because I feel like other people like Subhash Chandra Bose or Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, they had a different ideology, and uh, like I just wanted to know how relevant will that be to the current youth, and how the future youth will see Gandhi. How relevant will he be in future, and how much how will the contemporary youth how much relevant is it for the contemporary youth? Thank you. Yes.
Uh, okay, thank you, Lokesh. Uh, any other? Jadasurdha, saying something?
Yes, yes, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes,
Professor?
yes.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you, Professor Ponda, organized such a very relevant talk on the occasion of Gandhi Jayanti. And I am very much grateful to Dr. Anshuman Behera, covered such a big area uh, like Gandhian contribution and Gandhian relation. uh, on the background of this talk, actually uh, today, what are the area by which we can think the relevance of Gandhi? Uh, Thank you. But one thing, if you clear me, if you have uh, much study, you also mentioned K.C. Bhattacharya Swaraj. Uh, in this occasion, if possible, please highlight some things about Gandhian philosophy in the conception of K.C. Bhattacharya. Uh, and another thing, earnest. Uh, we study about earnest regarding the concept of self-realization. If possible, highlight it if possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ghosh. Yes, thank you very much. I think we can. Professor Behra would like to say something to this, and then we can maybe some people would take
Yeah,
time.
I as I told you, I have limited ability to actually comment on the philosophical aspects of it, you know.
No worry, no
But
worry.
then, okay, I'll just be very, very grateful to actually the teachers like, you know, Professor Pradhan sir and then Ranjit sir for educating me, like the surplus philosopher, what I was trying to actually mean. Okay, I just borrowed, this is not my idea. I just borrowed it from Professor Arun Patnaik, where he was mentioning in one of his chapters on Ambedkar, that Ambedkar was a surplus philosopher. Okay, but then, okay, I leave it because I will not get into that. I got corrected there. Many thanks for that, because this is the advantage when you come and speak before your teachers, you get enough opportunity to actually to be corrected. Okay, so to that extent, I got corrected, and I'll never use this. Okay. So that is the thing. And the second, this is also what Pradhan sir was mentioning about the spiritual and the moral fundamentals of a society and its implication of a philosopher is something that actually applies to Gandhi as well. Okay, and it's the very strong spiritual and the moral fundamentals of the Indian society also gets reflected in Gandhi's ideas. Okay, when uh, there is something ideology that somebody actually mentioned, Lokesh, I believe, hmm, Gandhi's ideology for youth. Okay, I think the entire, I will not say the ideology, but Gandhi's ideas and his philosophies. Ideology becomes very structural and it becomes very confined kind of thing. Okay, the names, the other names that you mentioned are it's because of the present political kind of pettiness, but Pradhan sir was actually mentioning. Okay, you get to know about this kind of Savarkar and all that sometimes, but then I think the ideas of ahimsa, the ideas of satya and satyagraha, these are certain things like, I teach in my research methodology course. Okay, ethnography as a foreign concept that has come to India. Okay, I just aid the whole aspect of satyagraha in conducting an ethnography, being truth to yourself. That is what our former director Rodam Narsimha, okay, I hold him as a very high esteem. So he has also mentioned how do you become, truthful to yourself in collecting the kind of, the literature and information about a society. So these aspects, to my understanding, ahimsa and satya, these are the two important and very basic principles and philosophies of Gandhi that we as, youth kind of, in India or elsewhere, need to read and need to internalize. That is where, you will get a lot of this kind of, societal problems of, aggressive posturing, assertiveness, identity politics, and extreme subjectivism kind of things that we are dealing with day in, day out, can be minimized, if not completely eradicated, if we start following, okay, those things like Satya and Ahimsa, Satyagraha, some of the basic philosophies of this thing of Gandhi. Satyendra Sar's this thing is, I absolutely agree with you. This is something that I actually corroborate with you, that we have a chapter in our book. The soft copy is with me, and with Professor Panda. Anybody wants, will definitely share with you. We have a chapter on Gandhi on air pollution. Okay, just imagine 1913, Gandhi actually writes a detailed essay on air pollution. Okay, that was the time when he writes a detailed essay on 1913, and nobody actually picks it up, because the British masters also didn't pick up. Again in 1933, he revisits that essay and writes. And if you read that essay, this essay has been, expanded and written by Satyanarayana Sahu, in our book. If you read that essay, Gandhi on air pollution, you'll find that, that all the things, sir, Satyendra sir, you actually mentioned, that the Gandhian thing was, followed a bit. We would have actually minimized the suffering during our COVID. That comes as very prophetic. Okay, I don't want to call Gandhi as a prophet, but then it comes very close to that. Okay, certain things that Gandhi actually mentioned. On Chinmay Naik's question, I am not the right person to actually have any ability to define what is philosophy and what is not. I and the philosophers are here. I would actually leave it to them. They will be able to sort of, comment on that thing, and you will forgive me for this limited knowledge from my side. And then coming to Jhadeswar Ghosh sir's comment, I was taking a small thing about a small portion of Swaraj in Ideas by K.C. Bhattacharya. It has been actually commented by some people that, okay, the Swaraj in Ideas and Gandhi's Swaraj, Gandhi's conception of Swaraj. Gandhi's conception of Swaraj is it's a limited understanding, offers only the political connotation of it, the limited understanding. But if you read it very carefully, you will see that what K.C. Bhattacharya is saying, that there is a hybridization of culture. Okay, the hybridization is happening because when we accept certain Western values or any other kind of, societies, without competition, comparison, and examination. Okay, and that is where Gandhi also rejects the Western civilizational values. Okay, he rejects because it's not that he's against that. Okay, he rejects because it is being imposed as an instrument of exploitation, as an instrument of colonization in the African, Asian, and the Latin American countries. To that extent, I actually tried to draw a kind of, commonality between K.C. Bhattacharya's idea of this hybridization of kind of, culture and Gandhi's rejection of westernization of values. So this is where I stop. Okay, I think I have whatever I could, I answered. Okay, I would like to listen to other people. Thank you.
Professor Ghosh is saying something. Yeah, please.
Hello, Dr. Behera. I think that we cannot put Gandhism as an ideology, because you see, ideology is always, the Western terminology, it is based on some compulsion. And that compulsion is missing in Gandhian philosophy. Because you see, Gandhi always tried to spiritualization of politics. And just compare between Gandhi and Marx, you will find that both aimed at the same thing, the emancipation of mankind. But when Marx tried to bring that emancipation at a very grand scale, Gandhi experimented it with the Indians, first of all in the South Africa and then in India, that he tried to make the spiritual aspect into forefront, and by that way he tried to evolve certain things, certain concepts. We now take them as concepts, but those were the realities with him. So for that reason, he took examples from Sumachas, a small is beautiful, and all these things. You see, certain Gandhian concepts, which actually we cannot put into practice. Take the case of bread lever. Very nice thing what he has said. Take the case of trusteeship. All these things, we just cannot put them into practice in our lives. But Gandhi, because of this spiritual elements in these things, we can say that Gandhi's vision was a prophecy. It was never an ideology. Yes. That is what I used to. I think that will be the proper assessment of Gandhi, and that's why Gandhi is being treated as a prophet. So we can say it's a prophecy and not an ideology. Thank you.
Yeah. I think if I may, with the chair's permission, I think you got it right. That is why I didn't call it an ideology. I said okay, ideas and principles and philosophies.
Right.
Yeah. So ideology becomes very straight jacketed, structured, and very rigid within a structural framework.
One because in this context, I want to say I did the same type of mistakes. I wrote an article some 30 years back, Ideology and Principles of Sarvodaya.
Yes.
But then I found David Watkins, the ideology, the book on political theory, and there I found that Gandhi's principles are totally different from the type of Western ideologies. So that just I reminded that after so many years, and so I mentioned it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Chinmoy is saying that no. If you look at, let us talk about Chinmoy's question. Chinmoy is little skeptical about Gandhi's ideas and Gandhian thoughts. Um, as Sir pointed out, Gandhi is a global thinker, and sometimes we miss seeing the the wider perspective that Gandhi provides to understand life in general and values in particular. And uh, one of the essays which I have contributed to this volume, which Professor Behera has edited, is and that is Making of a Man. I was trying to understand Gandhi, that how Gandhian thoughts can help us understanding human life and make us a better human being. Um, Professor Behera, of course, referred to the wars, the violence, um, etc. And the way uh, the concept of man has been conceptualized with the Western philosophers, particularly um, uh, Thomas Hobbes. Hobbes' conceptualization of man, Mill's conceptualization of values, and in the class, of course, we talk about Marx's conceptualization of man. So, uh, the Western conceptualization of man has tried to understand man with reference to um, the psychology of man, or let us say the science of man. But Gandhi, as Professor Ghosh was trying to highlight, and Professor Pradhan, of course, mentioned about the spiritual, the idea of the spiritual. So, man is not just a combination of body and mind. So, the kind of dualism that you see in understanding everything, I don't think Gandhian philosophy ever projects that kind of dualism. Gandhi was deeply motivated by, influenced by Vedantic thought of um, um, and Vedantic philosophy, and as you know, Vedantic philosophy is highly um, uh, monistic in nature. So, apart from body and mind, Gandhi understands very well and emphasizes that there is a spiritual realm. So when Gandhi spoke about the education of children, he said we need to understand um, these three aspects in a child, and we need to educate them in such a way that they get a holistic perspective of life. I think that is where I would try to draw your attention to many other things. It is not just about education, um, um, or educating or enlightening oneself with some spiritual ideas, but his whole experiment with various things, politics, cloth, food. Now, there is a lot of discussion on food nowadays, um, food security, and Professor Behera pointed out about freebies, no, subsidies, etc. And if you look at that, you will understand how Gandhi's experiment with diet. Nicholas Salt has written a book, In Search of a Perfect Diet. Gandhi was such an enlightened person. He tried to understand that what should be eaten and what should not. He's not just spoke about vegetarianism. We mostly go with this popular idea that he spoke about vegetarianism, um, wi- and put him in that straight jacket dualism between vegetarians and non-vegetarians. But he was trying to understand that what kind of diet a common man can eat and survive, and must not be a victim of malnutrition. So I think his concern was much deeper than as we look at him from the outside. So it is important, as my friend Satyendra was trying to tell us, that we need to uh, reflect on Gandhi's Hind Swaraj and see that what kind of conflict industrialization has, or industrial civilization. You talk about civilizations, industrial civilization has brought. And Ramin Jahan Beglo has written a book on civilization, and he tries to tell us that how de-civilization is taking place today. And Gandhi is one of the um, important thinker to save us from de-civilization. So, for example, referring to the kind of violence happening all around us, eco-terrorism, or the war, proxy wars, and the ongoing war, which Professor Behera was trying to highlight, shows that how human beings are violent, and have not given up their uh, greed. you know and Gandhi emphasized on the idea of a need. What is, so the basic distinction, the basic values, if you reflect upon, then I don't think you will be caught in that kind of a dualism which you are um, thinking. This is my observation, uh, and maybe we can discuss further on this.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much.
uh, we have many new guests like Vijay Deep. uh, would you like to say something, or mm, yeah, Rinku Rawat. So there are new guests to this forum. So if they have to say something, please share with us. Professor Rajkishore Nath is also here. Yes, Professor Nath, you would like to say something?
Yes, I joined late actually.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, I could not hear completely to our friend Dr. Behera. Uh, what I would like to say is that because Gandhi's idea is very much important in the 21st century, uh, because his method of non-violent approach also dispute many kind of uh, things in uh, establishing peace research, especially because my friend Behera is very much also concerned about peace research work, and because his ideas like Sarvodoyo, and which can be achieved through truth and violence also. Again, this Mahatma Gandhi's policy of non-violence was based on the concept of non-violence. Again, because it's not only non-violence, there are many things existing within it. There's a compassion and other ideas, and which is very much completely non-anthropocentric approach to the world, and where he brings both man and non-man actually in human and non-human content, and which plays very important for the existence of this world. World cannot be only a human-centric world actually, and the world is uh, both uh, human and non-human, and where he talk about exploitations is not possible to be through non-violence actually, any form of exploitations, and which is very much reflected in his writings and in his thought, uh, which I think uh, shows that which shows that it is not uh, radical to one aspect of human life. There are many aspects of human life, and that we can carry further for our own existence as well as existence of others. These are the few words I would like to say. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Nath. Alok, Vikrant, you're not saying anything. Uh,
Uh, no, sir. But I learned lot of things from this discussion, and I am happy that I am part of this discussion, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Professor Ghosh, are you saying something? Yes, please unmute. We are not able to hear.
Take it. All right, all right. Thank you. Since Dr. Behera is working in a national institute and associated with interdisciplinary research, one thing I want to be enlightened on this factor, that these days we are talking much about models. But if we take the two things, peace and conflict resolution, the model of peace and conflict resolution as advocated by Gandhi, is there any other models that you are talking about and you are discussing other than Gandhian model? Thank you. This small question.
Yeah, in the conflict resolution, you see that the concept of the whole concept of conflict resolution, as like any other concept, unfortunately, comes from the Western countries, right? So a lot of negotiations and conflict resolutions, say for example, the human need actions, then we have something like the principled negotiation theory. We do discuss all those kind of things. But if you if I get your email ID, I'll share the book with you, sir. That is where I have written a chapter on the peaceful resolution of the non-violent conflicts. That considering my major work is on political violence in India, for a long time I was thinking, this was because of my ignorance, maybe. I was thinking that, okay, only the development model that is actually suggested by the International Monetary Fund or a World Bank actually does the trick of actually bringing down the conflict. But when I read the Gandhi, I think Gandhi offers a, a doable or a kind of achievable kind of conflict resolution model without any kind of violence or counter violence to the kind of violent movements or violent kind of conflicts that we are experiencing in India. So, for example, in 1909, there was this Gadar movement was going on, where the Indians in America and Canada, they tried to actually fight the British with an armed kind of a movement, where the reports claim that ships loaded with arms and ammunitions were all set to leave from America and Canada to come to India to fight the British. Of course, the Americans and the Canadians had their vested interest fighting the British. Uh, and then Gandhi would actually object this kind of movement in principle. He said that if you achieve freedom through violent means, okay, imagine what would be the nature of that society. Okay, which I can actually link to what Professor Pradhan was mentioning. Lenin actually said to achieve something very very big in terms of establishing a communist rule in USSR. But then look at the former USSR. Arguably this was actually achieved through a violent means, and the society is completely into violence even now. Okay, they were in violence till 1989 in terms of occupying Afghanistan, then the disintegration of the Soviet Union. Now the Russia is attacking Ukraine, and before that, trying to capturing Crimea and all these things. So the achievement of the social that is established through the violent means will invariably bring or get into further violent kind of activities. That is what as you say, the prophecies of Gandhi. I will not call him as a prophet, but it was not less than a kind of prophetic kind of thing. That in way back in 1909, Gandhi would actually say that through this Gadar movement, through armed movement, if we achieve freedom, okay, Indian society will invariably get into this violent kind of mode. Okay, so this is there in my chapter. I'll definitely share with you. In fact, there is a mathematician, Venkat Kosina, has written a wonderful chapter in a book. It's a mathematical kind of understanding of Gandhian thoughts. There he's saying truth entails peace. Okay, so that's a wonderful chapter. He understands philosophy far better than me. But then he has actually. I'll definitely share that book with you, so that I'll also request you for your critical comments, so that we'll improve upon our understanding.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Behera. But one thing, just last thing, I'm probably bothering you more and more.
No,
Now,
no.
the thing is, the JP was an ardent follower of Gandhi. But when at the time of total revolution, which was against Indira Gandhi's emergency, then had Gandhi been there, whether he would have supported it or not, because you see, the principles of total revolution. So those things are also very full of idealistic and elements are there. So whether Gandhi would have supported it or not. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this is very very interesting. I think I have been following JP for a long time. when people have also for some petty interest also, like political scientists and people who claim to understand Indian politics, they have this kind of unnecessary kind of desire to pitch philosophers against each other or the politicians against each other. The same has also been written about Lohia, that he was against Gandhi. Okay, but you'll also, you must be probably knowing that Lohia was the first one to write a dissertation on civil disobedience movement. Okay, 1933. Yeah. So to that extent, I said that okay, he was a critic of Gandhi, but he JP, and the timing of his critiquing was also very much influenced by the political nature on the what is happening in India those time. Okay, Indian Congress, the way it had actually accumulated power, and India by 1970s, the way it was moving towards a kind of an elected totalitarianism, it was not surprising, okay, for JP to sort of criticize Indian National Congress. That is where a lot of people will pose him that okay, just because he was against Congress party, he was necessarily against Gandhi. Okay, that said, I also told you, if you read in the same kind of speech, I'll be happy to share with you. He also says that the economic or the economic principles that Gandhi actually offered to India or to elsewhere would have actually solved a lot of problem. Okay, because the small and the medium scale kind of industries to take care of the local kind of grievances and needs would never create okay mass scale displacement, what Nehruvian kind of development model had actually created. We in one hand we say that we have created 50,000 jobs, but at the same time, what we overlook is that we have displaced 40 villages. Okay. Now I'm doing a massive social impact study in different development projects in India. We see, yes, development has brought in certain kind of economic values to these areas, but at the same time, it has also displaced thousands of people. Gandhi's idea of Swadeshi, one hand is the Swadeshi pitched against the British administration or any foreign rule or foreign product is fine, but that captures the popular imagination very easily. But then, little when you dissect it, you'll see that Swadeshi is all about the local needs. Okay, the neighborhood and the immediate neighborhood kind of thing. But then that is also an oceanic circle, what Gandhi says. That is where Arun Patnaik's article comes very, very handy, that nothing is pitched against anything. Okay, so that is where so Lohia would, Gandhi would have actually supported Lohia, in my personal opinion, on the total revolution. Okay, because that time the Indian National Congress of Gandhi and the Indian National Congress of Indira Gandhi are two different things. Okay, because Gandhi himself had also called for the dissolution of Congress. Okay, once the freedom was achieved. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
sir.
Thank you. So anyone else? Professor Pradhan would say something more. Uh,
Yes, we see Gandhian debate on Gandhi is unending.
Okay.
So many aspects perhaps will always remain outside the boundary of any talk. So the question of uh, how Gandhi is to be related to Jayaprakash, for example, this question is very interesting. But I think JP movement was itself a Gandhian movement. JP never suggested that there should be armed revolution.
Yeah.
It was a peaceful revolution. Rather, the JP's opponent was armed with military, with police, and emergency was the draconian measure she inflicted on India. So, in that sense, JP and Gandhi. So, JP was initial days he was more influenced by communism, but his kind of socialism, for example, is not the hardcore communism, violence-based communism. So I think Gandhi's dream of India and JP's dream of India was the same. See, Gandhi, there is a book called The India of My Dreams.
Mm.
It's his collection of his views and speeches. So, what sort of dream that he had about India? It was a peaceful country having its moral and spiritual aspects intact and giving politics and economy their due within the boundary of morality. That is Gandhi. Gandhi really suggested that we should establish a society within the boundary of morality and spiritual. I think both these concepts are very much part of Gandhian thought. When we mean spirit or spirituality, he used the word religion, but since religion has multiple meanings, spirituality has a unified meaning. So that will be a better term. In fact, in his personal life, he believed that his politics is a way of achieving liberation. This is, as Ranjan has also put it, this is a Vedantic thought which he inherited. And he was true to his Vedantic leanings by suggesting that truth is one, really, then there are not multiple truths. This is monism or this is Advaita. So, without going into these metaphysical details, Gandhi's idea of a society, moral and spiritually strong society, was his dream of India, which of course is a very tall order, tall ideal, which can never be practiced in toto. But when philosophers give ideas or ideals, not ideology, I agree with Ranjit that ideologies are very structured, limited. They are their view is which is final, and it is the truth. Ideology absorbs truth and kills truth. Really, ideology kills truth. But Gandhi's ideas were truth based on truth. Really, his truth was ever flowing. New aspects of truth he was discovering. The whole autobiography is experiments with truth. His experiment to the brahmacharya is also experiment with truth. His experiment to the vegetarianism is also experiment with truth. His experiment with satyagraha as a means of civil disobedience is also an experiment with truth. So truth has a larger meaning for him. So of course, we philosophers treat truth as epistemological, metaphysical. This kind of subtle distinction, Gandhi had no time to dabble in because he was not an academic philosopher writing a paper for something. He was a thinker. He is personification of thinking. And whatever he thought, he practiced, of course. That is the greatness of his. So, in that sense, I think Gandhi's multiple genius has to be studied in multiple ways. And Professor Behera has done a good job in that book, having four section, I think four aspects of Gandhi. I think multiple aspects can be discovered. His views on religion can also be taken seriously. And his, of course, views on society are well taken. His views on women, for example, are very revolutionary, path breaking. So, feminism has become an ideology, therefore, it is no more taken seriously, excepting in some philosophical quarters. Because if you do not get any serious problem, then go to feminism. So that feminism has remained a dead kind of ideology. Respect for women, if that is the truth of feminism, then Gandhi is the greatest feminist. Respect for women, recognition of the human woman as a soul, as a self on her own, that is greatest feminism. Not fighting for this or that for is not feminism. Anyway, ideologies are bad, so that is what I tend to understand. But ideas are always the highest. When ideas become small and they are confined to a narrow area, they become ideologies. They are so ideologies are like the pools, the stinking pools, but ideas are like the flowing river. So I
Mm.
think that Gandhi was not an ideology driven man. He was open to any new ideas. So if you read his books and discourses, his writings in Horizon, Young India, you are always open to that. That openness can come only from a genuine philosopher. Even close-minded philosophers will not match Gandhi, because philosophers also become close-minded. That this is my truth and this is the only truth. Gandhi will never say that. Gandhi is discovering truth. So he's always a padayatri on the path of truth. He's always in the. He's always trying to understand truth more and more. So that is how I think, and thank you. So I think all of us.
And one sentence I want to add in this thing, what Gandhi said, that my life is my message.
Ah, yes, that is his practice. His life is his
His life
message.
is
His
his
life is
message.
his philosophy.
Yes.
So only few philosophers can claim that his life is like Socrates. He can say my philosophy is my life. Socrates wrote nothing, but Gandhi wrote voluminously.
Yeah.
So anyway, if Socrates his life becomes philosophy, Gandhi is also equally a Socratic thinker. For him also life is philosophy. And one latest example is Wittgenstein. His life was his philosophy.
Sure.
So there are two different personality. There is comparison between Gandhi and Wittgenstein by some philosophers. That is a good effort. But the point is that seriousness of thought is found in both. If you think this is correct, then practice it. So Wittgenstein did believe that. So, so in that sense, perhaps we can say that Gandhi comes in the group of serious thinkers, genuine thinkers for whom life is itself is a philosophy.
That's-
So thank
Okay.
you very much.
So I think if there is no question, then we may conclude the meeting here. Uh, so I think there is no question. So I think we had a very wonderful discussion today, and remembering Gandhi with all these great teachers, Professor Pradhan, Professor Ghosh, and some of my friends who are here, Satyendra, and um, and some of my students are also here, Jadaswar,
Yes,
Rajkishore.
Professor Ponda, I just,
You want to say something?
yeah, I just asked
Okay, okay, Jadaswar, please
Pradhan
say.
sir,
Yeah.
sir, is there any meeting point between Gandhi and Wittgenstein, or whether?
Oh yes, yes. If you read Professor Suresh Chandra's article on Wittgenstein and Gandhi, you are the first man to make a comparison. It is on the idea of Western civilization. So how to receive Western civilization, and as Professor Behera also highlighted, he never accepted the Western model of a civilization because it is lacking. He called it satanic civilization for whatever reason, because moral values are lacking in it, soul force is lacking. That is the idea in Huyn Swaraj itself. Wittgenstein was also not enamored by Western civilization. He wanted to go to the classical age where things are, man is taken as a spiritual being, where man has a higher ambition than mere amassment of wealth and acquisition of power. So Wittgenstein was in his personal life very much aware of the fact that his values are not the values of what modern industrial civilization gives. So he was searching for a different set of values, of course, from within his own tradition, because Western tradition is not all what we call the modern civilization. There is a classical aspect of also. If we identify modern with industrial civilization, then of course he is against modernity. But why do you confine modernity with a narrow idea of Western, modern Western thought? Because modernity, if it talks of liberty and justice, then that idea is very much present in any serious thought, that liberty and justice. So, in that sense, I think Gandhi and Wittgenstein were not anti modern in that sense. They were not happy with the way modernity has projected the future of mankind. So, in that sense, uh, You see, science goes with modernity. But was Gandhi against science? He was against the materialistic science,
Mm.
the science which only talks of the material world. But he talked of science in a very larger way. So, in that sense, I think he was not against science and technology. Charkha itself was a technology.
Mm.
He didn't accept what we later on call big machines, because that displaces the people, as Dr. Behera also has pointed out. That creates job, but also it makes people destitute. So in that sense, he was not against technology. He was for small technology which can be helpful to mankind. And Wittgenstein himself was uh, not enamored of technology. He lived in a very simple way. So in that sense, that suggests that he was always trying to move away from how a common Western man will live. He lived as some kind of a sannyasi. So that suggests that he was not happy, even if he stayed in the Western society. He was not absorbing all the Western ethos. So in that sense, the spirituality of life is the common link between Gandhi and Wittgenstein. If there is anything spiritual, because the word spiritual is also dauntingly unclear. Many people make a misuse of the word spiritual. But if we take it in the right spirit, then Gandhi and Wittgenstein were both spiritual thinkers, talking about the higher values of man, higher values of life. If that is spirituality, then both were searching for higher values of life.
Common thread is perhaps Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer
Yes,
is the common thread between
yes,
Gandhi and
Schopenhauer
Wittgenstein.
also, yes. Yeah, definitely. So that is, Schopenhauer is very close to Wittgenstein, and Schopenhauer is closer to Indian thinking. So in fact, Gandhi was more influenced by Tolstoy. Uh, a letter to Hindu was written by Tolstoy to Gandhi.
Unto this
A
last.
letter to
Yeah.
Hindu. Both were saintly characters. Both lived in some kind of a moral purity. Both were aspiring for moral purity.
Also, Ruskin,
Ah, yes.
Tolstoy, all the Russian authors, they have influenced Gandhi a great.
Yeah, that definitely.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Uh, I think it was very enriching. Some of the reflections were enlightening as well. Um, on behalf of Forum for Philosophy, I thank Professor Anshuman Behera for readily agreeing to give a talk um, on the theme of the book. And so we are really grateful to you, and we hope that in future you will associate yourself with the forum's activities, academic activities that we conduct. And I also thank Professor Pradhan for no, I did not really, for all other occasions I consult him that I'll put your name as a chairperson, but for this I know just did it because I know that he will not say no. So so thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Professor Ghosh, for joining regularly and giving your own valuable inputs to us. And I thank all the participants. Um, I think this is how Gandhi will be remembered forever, and will cherish his ideas and values, and uh, try to see that how little it can be practiced in our own ways. So, as thoughts are eternal, thoughts will never die. So Gandhi would live for centuries till the civilization uh, remains. So with that hope, we all are celebrating Gandhi Jayanti, and I think this is the right occasion to celebrate ideas and reflect on them. Yeah. With this note, I thank all of you once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ranjan, and
Thank
Thank
you,
thank
you.
you,
sir.
Anshuman,
Thank you to
Thank
all.
you
for
very much.
this work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.